who don't know me, I'm Joy, one of the owners of Jahroc, and I'd like to thank everyone for donning their woolies and coming out on such a lovely night as this. We've got an interesting evening planned to both all three amazing artists speak about their work, and all in many ways similar, but all have quite diverse intentions with what they're doing. I met both Geoff and Ralph in the 1990s and have really enjoyed watching them grow as artists, and a great joy to see them painting even more beautifully and well these days. So without me talking too much, I'm going to invite Geoff to begin his little speech.
Do you mind if I talk about one of the paintings?
Yes,
go for it.
That'd be really interesting.
What I found was that the way I work is the process is by making. I don't have the idea at the beginning. I actually, through the process of putting the paint down, making the marks, I will then grow the picture through time. So I get my idea more at the end rather than at the beginning. So I tend to, place shapes, create nice paint qualities, and then gradually grow it along. And also, you come along with a sort of a suitcase full of skills that you've developed over 40 odd years. So you've got that with you as you're going along. One idea follows from one painting to another, in a sense, so that you're not searching in the dark, in a sense. In a way, what I do too is in the process of working, I'll have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, in the sense that I have one foot in the skill base and one foot in an experimental base. So I'm taking risks all the time, but I have to. I don't know, you have to defer gratification a bit, you have to put several layers of paint down and wait until you get a certain effect. You don't always get the immediate effect right at the beginning. You might have to do something and leave it till tomorrow. If you get stuck or something like that, I just put it in the naughty corner and go on to another painting. There's probably a few painters here that do that.
Like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of it. You've got to get your objectivity, to come back and see it in a new unit of time. I follow sometimes statements by other artists. I've got a statement by William Debecorn, as an American expressionist painter. He says, do search, but in order to find other than what is searched for. So it's always, you're always trying to entertain a surprise, in a sense. I'll create nice painterly things, and then, I will look for something else along the way, Anyway, I think that just about covers it. What do you reckon, Ralph? You want to have a go now?
Before you leave, Geoff, just if anybody's got any questions about
Geoff's
work, that's always interesting if someone's got a question. We'll fire one off.
Geoffrey, I've seen over time that there's been the ocean and the sea creatures coming through your art for quite some years, and I just wonder, is there a connection? You mentioned earlier just now the past, and I'm thinking about your perhaps childhood days of fun family times with fishing, crabbing, da 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 da. Is that just too obvious, or?
No, I
Do you feel that coming through?
I suppose those things do come through from your DNA or your childhood, I suppose, something like that. But as I was saying, they always are a bit of a surprise what you end up with, and where they come from sometimes is just through the making, and all of a sudden you'll realise, oh, there is something, and you'll grab it. You know. And in this case, it was these fish in this particular painting. But I like the idea that there was it's a fish forest, that's the title, but it could be underwater. It could be, it has more of an underwater thing, but I tried to get some of the qualities in a painting that might occur in these areas, like forest forms and fish and that sort of thing. But in that one I combined the two in that sense.
Good.
I've got a question.
There you go.
You said that you like to keep one foot in the past in your skill set. And so is there some element that you find you generally always bring for the painting, that there's some knowledge that you always find you do use? Or is it just varied for each use?
I think what we may do, what I tend to do is I probably use a similar technique, and I try and create a problem, a good problem. I'll put I'll balance tones and shapes and colours and lines and make the techniques work for me, make them fluid and thick and textural and things like that. And through that, I will launch into or flow into an idea. But I will do that every time. That's the way I would approach it. It's difficult to explain through words, but I think you've got to have a constancy of approach, something that holds you, that you can flow from. There is an interesting point in painting, I think, when you get a flow line going. It's a bit like football, I suppose. I don't know if you ever watch football.
Don't talk about football.
Sorry, politics and religion, no.
No, there's a point when people aren't thinking about, when they're playing, they're not thinking about anything, and they're just going for it, So that's what you're heading for. You get your idea, you're flowing without thinking towards the end result. Too much thinking is not good for it. I've sat there and got into a think for half an hour and never get anywhere. You've got to put them up, you've got to do it.
Thanks.
Okay?
That's fascinating, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
And Ralph, would you like to come forward?
Thank you. I don't know how I can follow that, Geoffrey. I have to say, Jeff, I came to painting late in life, and Jeff was one of my mentors, really, without necessarily knowing it, because I had a studio in Fremantle where his studio is, and we used to chat and talk, and he gave me so much encouragement and insight. First of all, though, I'd like to say about Jahroc. I've been mentored as well by Jahroc. I think my first show was at the Mill Gallery in New York. I don't know how many years ago now, quite a while. And that was fantastic. And I really wanted to say thank you to Joe and Lara and Dave and Gary. And they've been fantastic to me all these years. And so I want to say that.
Thank you.
And how fantastic it is to be here, to have a show here in Margaret River in this fantastic gallery. Just superb. And they've hung it so beautifully. Terrific. Really, really good. Gives me a great lift. And how did I come to painting? After being an architect and town planning, and I just got so fed up with that. Not so much the work of architecture, but the planning and the councils and the local government and politics, and I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I went to art school. It was then the Claremont School of Art, and it was fantastic. But it's now been passed on to something else a long time ago. And so that's how I got into art. And I find myself painting not in a dissimilar fashion to what Geoff was explaining. I don't know where I'm going to go when I start painting, I really don't. But I have this feeling of space, relates to landscape specifically, about not a picture of landscape, it's not a sort of portrait of landscape, it's the feeling of the landscape, the feeling that it gives you, and the colour and the tone and the space that I'm somehow evolve as I'm doing the painting. So I don't really know where I'm going until it starts to come together. It, very much as what Geoff was explaining. And it has, say, a colour of the sunset of, if you've ever seen a sunset like that out here, over the west coast, with the clouds going and the red sunset, that might be red sunset with a bit of light of the sun flashing through, I'm not sure. This might be something to do with the forest here at night. And that feeling of, I don't know, sort of deep space and mystery. This one over here, of course, is, I called it Western Gold, but it's really something to do with landscape or space moving through the colour of the desert. And this one is sand, so that's to do with, guess what? Sand. and that's the feeling, but the truth is I didn't set out to make that painting of the beach, it just happened to come that way. And I felt when I'm doing it, I'm on the beach, or I'm feeling the space having just come back from the beach. So that's about it.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you.
I was going to ask you, whenever I look at this painting, I feel it should be accompanied by very grand music.
Yeah.
There's a grandness in that landscape. Is that what you were feeling at the time?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it had a very powerful feeling, and it might have been classical music, but I wasn't conscious of that. As I said, when I'm painting, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. In fact, I struggle with it a lot because not knowing what you're doing, you're thinking, oh, is it finished? Is it not? I don't know. So, thank you.
Do you, like, how do you know when it's finished? Do you
Good
keep
question.
coming back to it?
I
Or?
asked my wife.
She says enough.
She said, well, I tell you the truth, if she comes in and goes, I know it's not.
Actually, what you haven't said is that you actually build the paintings.
Oh yes, well that's true.
Where,
It
you
does
know, they
build up.
start off in a way and then they get built up and built up, and the colours get thin layered over it, and they're actually quite complex process that I see kind of happening. But when you look at it at the end, you see that process as a finished process rather than the building. There would be a lot of kind of underpainting in most of Ralph's work, especially the later work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With this painting, did you intend for it to be in 3 parts? Or was that
Well, it was actually, yes, it's always been a triptych. Yep.
Okay.
Although you could split it into 2 if you wanted, but I wouldn't do that. I like it.
Because you were an architect and now you've become the painter afterwards, is that, like, did you struggle with saying, okay, because architecture is so representational and it is exact, that you've done, like, pretty much say the opposite of your painting?
You've got it, you've put your finger right on it.
You want to get away from that, yeah?
Exactly. And it's a different mindset. I'm used to drawing, yes. And I've had to break away from that. Although some of my early paintings were more geometric they were fine, and they're still looking okay. But I'm moving into more spacious and less rigid. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
And now I'll ask Gary on behalf of Alust to come and talk.
Come on,
about-
Daisy, you can join me, mate.
Yes, and Dave.
Come on, it's not just me, it's two of us.
Boys night.
We're a team.
Yeah, I like that comment, not knowing when it's finished.
What? You know, it's always
I can't
interesting.
wait for you to finish.
It was interesting listening to the techniques and the ideas and how you work, because I've got no idea what I'm going to do before I start either. And I mean, I get challenged by the materials a lot, but you know, Jeff's comment is, you know, I'm a very ordinary drawer, so I can't really express myself. I have an idea in my head, but I can't draw it well. So therefore, it's got to start A, with the material, B, with the concept, which will be a rough sketch, and then it kind of just grows from that. And you know, this whole landscape thing, this body of work that we've put together, I must confess, wasn't just for this show. We've been working with another artist for the last 10 or 12 years doing collaborative exhibitions that are landscape and seascape based. And it was Larry, and he wanted to do the South Coast, and so that's really where this started. But because Larry works in such long projected ways, I thought, well, we're never going to show this work, what are we going to do? And then when I saw I think the title of this show, and I saw that painting over there of Ralph's, and I said, why don't we show some of this work? Obviously, the bad part is I'm going to have to make a whole lot more work for the show with Larry later, but we'd accumulated some really nice pieces, and the title Landscape, Not Landscape, just got me, because this trying to express a landscape through furniture, you know, is difficult. So, so yeah, that just kind of rang with me. And then when Jeff puts a painting in the naughty corner, I had that piece of wood there in my naughty corner of the workshop for 2 years because it just wouldn't behave, and it was just such an odd shaped piece of wood. I thought, what am I going to do with it? So, but this started, Larry's idea was the Paronga-ups and basically the southwest corner, Esper and Sprenger Bay. And when I drove past the Stirling Ranges down there, the Paronga-ups, I was going, wow, you know, look at this landscape, because I'd never actually noticed it before. I probably drove past it. I'm sure I did years and years ago, driving back across the Nullarbor, but that was after driving for 3 days. I'm not sure what kind of mind-enhancing drugs I was on, but I hadn't slept for a while, so I mustn't have seen it. Anyway, I saw it for the first time only probably 3 years ago, and I came back to my workshop and I saw that bit of wood in the naughty corner, and boom, desk, you know, and I started to get the geometry and the natural landscape, and so that's how that all came together. So yeah, this body of work has grown from that, and it just seemed ideal to connect it with these two guys, and we've had their work in the gallery for 15 or 20 years, and we do get inspired by, well, I do get inspired by the artist's work all the time, and I've learned so much. In fact, I've learned stuff tonight just listening to you two guys that I'll probably use next time in the workshop. But we're a team, we work together, and certainly I come up with the ideas, but Dave is a big part of the process as well, and you know, making, I mean, they're all beautiful, but you know, trying to get something like that piece of wood to shine like that, when I finish with it, I can guarantee it didn't look like that in terms of the finish, and Dave spends just about the same amount of hours as I do making them, polishing them, so, and it's an art in itself, so yeah, that's, I guess, a little bit of our process and what's gone behind part of this show. So you'll see the nature. I guess this show is sort of the landscape, the nature and the geometry coming together in a different way than we've done it before. So I'll keep it brief because you've all been standing around for a while. You probably want a glass of wine. So anybody got any questions, fire away. Otherwise,
Yeah, can I ask, was that a big log or?
yeah. So that had been, I don't know, dead on the ground for probably I don't know how many years. I mean, I don't know how many fires it's been through, but it was really burnt and charred. It was a burled log, so it had about 4 or 5 burls. So this thing here folded out. I cut and folded that up, but that was out here. And then this courtesy board was out here. So initially, I mean, I'm always thinking dining tables when I see these big burls, and that's what stumped me. I couldn't think of a dining table because it just had too many odd knobs on it. I thought people are going to get annoyed sitting around this thing because it's just a weird shape. And yeah, so then I sort of, you know, sometimes you've got to fight the wood a bit, which I did. And then I started cutting it and folding it, and it became a desk. But yeah, it was an interesting process. But yeah, it was a very, well, I think it was 4.5 metres long, and it was about 1800 wide. And again, trying to use it in its entirety was kind of difficult anyway, so it became a desk, and the rest is history.
Just a desk.
Yeah. So when you're walking through the bush,
Yeah.
you know, looking at the stuff, you'd look at some things, wouldn't you, as though it was a great problem to solve. Some things would have more of a great problem, potential problems, you know, in the solving of it.
Absolutely.
Others wouldn't. So you have to have that eye, don't you? You have to be able to see that potential.
Yeah, it's almost an affliction because once you've got that, I know initially when I started was rock as well. I'd see rocks and think, oh, can I make out of that? But I will. I mean, I collect, Dave will tell you, I collect things off the side of the road, don't I, mate? I've got one at the workshop I collected 25 years ago that I haven't made into anything yet, but I will one day. But it just hasn't leapt out at me yet. But I'm constantly looking at things and going, what can I make out of that? And always dead things, you know, like not dead, you know, lying on the ground, because to me that's, you know, what are we going to do with that? Unless it's obviously a place for a possum to live, then I leave it alone. But otherwise, fair game, and let's make something nice that can be treasured and lasted.
Absolutely.
It's good, you know, having the skill to be able to turn that just lump of wood into that. You know, fantastic, really. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. It's the same with you. When you start with a canvas and paint, and look what you come up with, and that's the beautiful thing about being an artist, isn't it? I mean, it's just such a rewarding way to make a living.
Yeah. Well, in our sense, my sense, and Ralph's sense, probably we have to put the paint on to create a problem, to see the potential in the problem.
Lots of problems.
But I mean, problem in a good sense.
Yeah. Well, nature creates our problems, and sometimes it's a problem, isn't it, mate?
The biggest thing is that a lot of the time we'll find a bit of wood and we'll go, what are we going to do with this? And you'll say a gas, and we'll just give it a gas and go, stick that in your workshop for a while and come up with something. So, and the ability of making the pieces is probably a craftsman's tool or a tradesman's tool, but it's getting the idea is the hardest thing, and working out how on earth you're going to turn that. And actually turning it into it is tricky. That I believe the hardest part is coming up with that idea. Is what am I going to do with this? And then turning it into something that is truly beautiful.
And hopefully useful.
But sometimes when you force yourself to get the idea, it doesn't come, does it? And then you're driving down the street one day, and there it is.
Yeah.
That's what I tell Dave. I mean, I can't just sit in my workshop, mate. I've got to surf or do something.
Then you get the idea out in the ocean.
It's amazing how many times I'll be taking a drop down.
Lots of inspirational surf meetings.
Board meetings are very cool.
No, we're pretty lucky.
I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all three of you speak, and I hope everyone else has too.
Yes.
And enjoy the rest of the evening.